Sportin Wales podcast.
Supported by DragonBet.
Your go-to for Welsh sports news and views.
Hello and welcome to the Sportin Wales podcast, sponsored by DragonBet and co-founded by Alex Cuthbert and Gareth Anscombe. I'm Geraint Hardy and I'm here to keep the guests in check as we look forward to the Sportin Wales week. Please remember to click follow and thanks for listening to this podcast. And this week, joining myself and Alex Cuthbert in the studio, a man who's been to New Zealand and back last year and is currently in Wales for now. A warm welcome to Rhys Patchell to the studio. Diolch yn fawr gyda ni, Rhys. Thanks for joining us today. Before we talk about moves and transfers and all sorts of other stuff, congratulations, Rhys, because you got married this year. How was that recently?
It was good. It was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, like the whole the groom doesn't really know what's going on. I did not know what's going on. I watched a lot of boys, brother, cousins, all get married, and I thought there's a better way of doing this. So I gallivanted off to the other end of the world and left Hells to get on with it. And she did a great job. Hopefully, Cathy enjoyed himself.
Yeah, free bar.
Free bar.
It wasn't a free bar. I was gutted with that, but no, it was good. It was good. It was a nice wedding. All the boys were there. It was good to catch up with everyone. Really,
Yeah,
you know, you've played with all these boys over the years, but when you do have a wedding like that, boys sort of let their hair down and sort of enjoy each other's company. It was it was good crack.
So who was there for like the list of players? Who would people know that was invited to who made the shortcut?
Big dogs at his wedding, mate.
Well, the big dogs,
Big dogs were
yeah. So Cuthbert was there, number one on the list.
I was way down, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, Cathy. Boys that I'd played with, a couple of national squad players, a couple of boys that I'd played with at Cardiff and at the Scarlets as well. So, yeah, it was nice. Awesome day. As Cathy said, I think everybody enjoyed themselves and just disappears, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think Hells and I were just sat there at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock in the morning, everybody left, and we were like, where's the last 18 hours of our lives gone? And I never really understood, you know, that at times in weddings, it can feel like there's a lot of sort of standing around, have a drink or whatever, you know. I didn't really understand how much there was for the bride and groom to do, but it just, when you're stood in your suit and your wife's stood in a white dress, the day just disappears in front of your eyes, doesn't it? So yeah, awesome. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, great job, Hells. Die on tea.
Did your speech go well? You happy with that execution of your speech?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was all right.
Al, were you happy with his speech?
It was good. It's different, really, because everything was in Welsh.
Oh yeah,
So,
I'd expect that.
Yeah,
Hellas,
obviously.
to be honest.
And we had these like headphones, and we had a translator, and it was pretty cool actually. Yeah. So and she was like quite good on there in terms of when they were obviously taking a piss out of each other. She came across it. It was quite. Yeah. It was I've never had done that before. So
yeah.
It was good.
Stag do? Did you manage to get a stag do then? Because you were in New Zealand, come back.
It's fairly low key. At one stage, I managed. Well, not managed. The Highlanders were great about the whole situation. Really, they were fantastic. And at one stage, it was going to be before I got injured that I would land on Monday, get married that week, and then fly out the weekend and be ready for training the following week. But because I was injured, that plan changed a little bit. So the whole thing was fairly tight as far as I was concerned. So I wouldn't drink anyway. So it would have been pretty boring stag do if there was the lads would have gone nuts and I'd have just been there
watching them,
captain responsible in the corner. So
yeah. So now you're married. And there's rumours going around you're off for another move. Have you got any update you can share with the public in terms of what your next steps are as a player for a club?
No, not really. It's all fairly low key, I suppose. When there's something to be announced, it'll be announced. But it's a tough market out there at the moment. And I suppose when it's on the dotted line and it's all done, then that's at the point where you can say, yeah, sweet, this is going to happen. But yeah, I've been stung by a couple of them before. You think you're going to get something nailed on and it falls through at the last minute.
Yeah. So when New Zealand happened to you, how did that come about then?
I was really lucky. So played for the World 15 at the back end of 22-23 season, and Hells and I were going on holiday, and I just had this random text off Richard Whiffin, who I'd worked with at the Scarlets and was at the Highlanders, and it was something along the lines of, "Hi mate, I'm in a recruitment meeting for next year. They need a 10. This is the profile player. This is the profile person. This is the job. There's more than just playing in it."
He was in the meeting,
Yeah,
so they were waiting for your reply.
Well, sort of. and I think you fit the bill. Would you be interested? And sweet, awesome, be brilliant. And didn't really think much more of it. Nobody from Wales goes to Super Rugby. And then they must have done a bit of digging or whatever and got some references and spoken to various people. And sort of halfway through the holiday, he texted me back being like, they seem fairly keen about this, Rhys. Would you still be interested? Yeah, sweet, awesome. This is my agent's number. And then the day that we were flying back, or the day before we were flying back, got a phone call from my agent. They seem really keen about this, Rhys. Like, something's going to come through imminently. You better have a chat with Hells about whether or not this is going to work out for the two of you in terms of the timing and the wedding and all the rest of it. And then sort of a couple of hours after that phone call with Rhys, my agent, the head coach texts me and went from having nothing to having something signed on the dotted line and ready to go in the space of like 4 or 5 days.
Wow. So for context, people listening, Helen, your wife now is a sports broadcaster. So she's got her own career, right?
Yeah.
And a diary that goes around that sporting landscape.
Yeah.
So for you as a couple, it's a big moment, it's a big conversation, that, isn't it? So she didn't come with you. So
like,
how did you approach that?
Hals was unbelievably philosophical around the whole thing, and so she sort of, well, Rhys, my career is here, and I'm building my career, and she's doing really well, like unbelievable. Does the Radio Cymru, does a bit of S4C, does a bit of Match of the Day for the women's football.
Yeah.
And I would hate for her to have sort of sacrificed that career so that I can chase a ball around. There's a lot more longevity in what she does compared to what I do. And she sort of went, well, this is an unbelievable opportunity for you. And you want to coach after you finish playing, and knowing the rugby knows that you'll make the most of talking to all the coaches and garnering as much IP as you possibly can. So if we're saying that the best thing for my career is that I stay in Cardiff and I continue to build my career here, then equally we've got to accept that the best thing for your career is that you jump on a plane and you go to the other side of the world. And the way that the whole thing is structured, so we think of a season as sort of pre-season starts middle of June, finishes end of May, whereas pre-season there started last week of November. They train for 5 weeks, they get 2 weeks off for Christmas, they train for another 5 or 6 weeks, then the season starts. 6 weeks into the season there's a bye week. 6 weeks after that is the end of the regular season, and if you're in the playoffs, you're in the playoffs. So we managed to work out that there was sort of a once every 5 or 6 weeks, one of us would travel back and forth for a period of time. We'd meet in the middle in the bye week. And so it's surprising how quickly the time goes. And like FaceTime's awesome. Not the same clearly as being home and all the rest of it, but actually the time difference, one of us was finishing our day and the other one was starting. So there was always something to talk about because one of us had just
completed a day,
wasn't it? So there was always an update, or there was always some form of questions, stuff that needed to be updated. So awesome experience. Super glad that Hells was as supportive as she was, and had she not been, then probably a different outcome would have happened, and I wouldn't have gone.
It sounds great to me. See my missus once every 5 weeks. It's not too bad.
Well, we got kids of me. It's a bit different, isn't it? But
yeah. So what kind of amazes me about that story is that it was kind of just a WhatsApp thing, and it just happened so quickly, really, Rhys.
Yeah.
So kind of the contacts and the people you'd met along the way were key in that kind of transfer.
Yeah, I think so. I'd say so. Clearly, like there's an accepted level of competency, isn't it? Like and timing all works out. Freddie Burns was moving on from the Highlanders. They lost an awful lot of experience in the squad. They had 2 young 10s who between them had 2 games of Super Rugby, so they weren't ready to quite hand the keys to them, or the team to them. And as you say, contacts. Rugby's a very small village, as we already know in terms of conversation we had off air. And so, that's basically how it's done. And a coach often goes to another club and they get an opening in a certain spot, and they ring up a former player that they like or they think is going to do a good job for them, knowing the character that they're going to get, knowing the output that they're going to get out of that player, and so it's a bit like management, really. It's like football managers, isn't it? You know, football managers, they have their team or they have their guys and they go around with them. And I suppose to an extent, not the same level, but to an extent that coaches like to do the same as well.
Yeah, it's interesting space though, isn't it, Al? Because obviously, you know, you're looking for another club now. So do you take a brief to an agent and say, this is roughly what I'm looking for? Or kind of, how does it work now? Because as Rhys said, like, the times are difficult now. Landscape of rugby has changed to what was, 4 seasons ago?
Yeah, it's things happen very, very quickly in rugby. It can change, you know, within, someone could just be injured and then bang, you get that call and you've got 6-7 months at another club. That's what classed as a medical joker. References are key. That's why you having relationships with all coaches, whether it's the backs or head coach, goes a long way. You know, you know, we've had a few coaches at Cardiff, and I've still had very good relationships. You know, Danny's at Quins, so we had conversations there and so forth. You know, so those relationships you build over the years, and because a coach very rarely stays at one club for a long period of time. You know, they do change quite a lot. You know, they have a big success and then it doesn't go well and then they move on. That seems to be the mantra of a lot of coaches, especially in rugby, I think, nowadays. Maybe a couple of years ago they were probably in roles a lot longer, but the squads then were obviously bigger, and then teams would always be picking up players, where at the moment there seems to be a lot of players on the market, and then clubs are only going in on those players whether they need injury cover, or, you know, whether they really want to push the level up in terms of that position in the club. So, yeah, a lot of it is all relationships. Like Rhys would have had really good references, obviously, in that recruitment. So he would have been like, right, yeah, Rhys is hardworking, skill set. Let's get him out. It'd be a great experience. And then they would have gone probably to the Scarlets, probably a couple of people there just to be like, oh, what's Rhys like around the boys, and so forth. So it can happen very, very quickly, and especially with like summer tour now in a lot of these countries, injuries are going to happen, and then other clubs, because they're a lot lighter now, we were speaking off air, they're going to need players, you know, so there's a lot of players that they can choose from at the moment, because obviously there's a lot of clubs that aren't going at the moment, and they've gone.
It seems to me for the first time, kind of this window, there's a lot of players available, right? And there used to be kind of a structure to kind of, when people get signed, you'd know about things and you'd know where you're going next season. There's less of a structure, it seems for me, within kind of transfers within rugby at the moment. Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. The market is definitely a lot later, and teams are willing to leave it a lot later now, because they know there's less choice. Ultimately, when teams fold, the market gets flooded, and so you don't have to move quite as early, because economics, supply and demand.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the transfer window has moved, and you are now seeing top quality players getting signed later and later in the day. Now, some players want to leave it right to the end because they want to get to a certain market, because, you know, traditionally, for example, like the Japanese market is very, very late. So they don't start their recruitment until May, June. Anything done before that is like super early for the Japanese market. Well, some players will say, I want to get to Japan. That's the market I want to get to. And so I will sort of ignore all the offers, or I won't test the waters in the Northern Hemisphere in order to get there. But then that leaves that player exposed as well, because if something in that market doesn't come up, then all of a sudden they have to take what's left in the UK market. So it's a very difficult business. I think people have a very glamorous view of what sports agency is. I'm not quite sure that the reality is
changed a lot, isn't it?
Scrambling. People scrambling, I'd imagine, in the agents wise, they've got to be working really hard.
I remember signing most of my contracts before Christmas. That's where it used to be at. You know, if you were a high level athlete, into like international player, you would be signed probably more or less before Christmas, and then later on, obviously after Six Nations is usually another time where a lot of clubs were signed. France a little bit later, and obviously like Japan. But now clubs are in a little bit of a stronger position, because they know that a lot of these players are looking for clubs, so they can offer probably 20-30% less, knowing that they're probably going to have to take that, because there's other players that will take that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you get to a situation where the market is actually, that's how I think it's obviously just dropped, isn't it? That's the money-wise, and that's why these clubs are a lot smaller, because their top players are obviously having to still pay big money, But then there's obviously they're trying to have a smaller squad with a smaller budget.
But the standard person listening outside in a so-called normal job, it's quite scary to think, I don't know what my job's going to be like in 2 months' time.
Yeah, it is. But nobody's got a gun to our heads and force us to do this. Like this is a lifestyle choice that the boys decide. You know, like we can all jump off the train at any time.
Yeah.
And I think probably the hardest bit is for families and loved ones, because they don't make the decision to jump on the train. They're sort of dragged along with you. They're alongside you, aren't they? But you're the one who makes the decision to say, this is what I want to do, and the implications of this is X. So yeah, like, you know, don't get the violins out for the lads. Like, the boys
you're fine about it, yeah?
Well, you sign up for it.
But like right now, relaxed about it. It'll.
Yeah, like Rhys is pretty proactive off the field as well. That's where I think the biggest thing with rugby players nowadays, early on, whether they go to college, university, they really have to have another idea of what they want to do after rugby a lot earlier than probably they used to, I think. Like, I really do think these young lads coming through now, they do well to get to 30 and not think about another career that early enough. You know, over the years, you've had players who are probably just good club players, could play 10, 12, 13 years for their club. That's not happening anymore. And they're getting moved on, and these squads are slowly but surely getting younger and younger.
Yeah. So what is that? What's the chapters you want to untap kind of go into the future? Obviously, I know you want to play next season, but like, what else is kind of?
So in order to go to New Zealand, I was doing an education qualification. So I was doing that part time. Set up by the WRPA, the Welsh Players Association. They put me in touch with USW and Coleg y Cymoedd, and we were doing that on a Monday evening. So I put that on hold. So I've got to go back to that. I passed year one.
So is that like a teacher's training or coaching training? Like what was that?
It's a professional certificate in education.
Yeah, okay,
so I'd be able to go and work in a school in higher education or academic institution. So I need to go back. Sometime, I think the rule was if you passed year one, you had 4 years to go back.
Okay.
And complete your course. So at some point, that'll happen. I like the idea of coaching. Like, love the game. Kath will tell you, can't stop talking about it. Just love the intricacies of it. Shape, attack. Like, attack coach is what I think I want to be. Yeah. Everybody thinks they want to be something until they find out what the job really entails.
Yeah, fair enough.
There'll be one at Wales soon, I reckon.
But every coach that I talk to about it says, you know, what eyes wide open as to what you're going into, because your day finishes at whatever time it does as a player, and my day starts 3 hours earlier and finishes 3 hours later. But you know, if it's an itch I want to scratch, I'd like to get involved in that and enjoy the bits of media work, predominantly siarad Cymraeg, predominantly the Welsh media, S4C, Radio Cymru. Enjoy those bits and bobs as well, and inevitably things come up for the boys that they haven't even considered. You know, you finish playing and somebody drops you a message or says, "Should we catch up for a coffee?" and something that you haven't considered comes across the desk. So fairly, I think I've got a plan.
Yeah.
But equally, you know, fairly open as to what it all and how it all works out.
Yeah. Let's go back to New Zealand, because I want to talk to you about you breaking the internet or going viral a bit. The offload against the Blues, that went down well. Beautiful passes in the first game, right? The long pass.
Yeah.
You seem to play out there with some just complete freedom. You must have enjoyed it. But what was it about playing out there that kind of you enjoyed most? Because you talked about how the attacking instincts were different, kind of the way they approached the game is different there to here.
Yeah. First things first, awesome environment. So they had a real high turnover of players from the previous year, lost a lot of experience. And so the Highlanders as a team, traditionally, I'd be fairly confident saying this on the record, because Jamie Joseph, the guy who runs the rugby department there, also says that they're a team that has to recruit players to come to them. So somebody like Tanielu Talea that we signed, Jacob Ratamaitavuki Nepkins. Imagine being a commentator.
I know.
It's hard enough for the Italians, let alone.
So those two would have come from Auckland to come and play for us. Would have been a little bit further down the depth chart at Auckland. But but would come to the Highlanders for an opportunity to play. And so they started at 13 and 15 for us.
Is that like a Connacht, if you were going to sort of compare?
Like Connacht used to be, whereas obviously Connacht have improved
Okay.
drastically now. And so they used to be heavily reliant on university students who came to the University of Otago. Top level players at age grade would come to Otago and then they'd be able to hold on to them. But not so much the case anymore because the system gets professionalised a bit earlier. So anyway, there's a big turnover in the squad, and it was a very young squad. So like the enthusiasm to play was off the charts. It's probably why they recruited a Northern Hemisphere 10 to be like, whoa, now lads, let's play down the field a little bit and we look after our forwards. So that was the first thing. Like the enthusiasm play was there. The coaching staff were excellent. Kenny Lynn, absolute rock star coach. Loved working with Kenny. And he had an awesome framework in which, or the way that he wanted to play, I aligned with it really quickly. I believed in a lot of what he was trying to coach. And they sort of just went, right then, Rhys, help these kids along. And it was awesome to sort of try and set up a team the way that I'd want the game to be played. And often I've played in teams that are set up for somebody else and you feel like you've got to carry the weight of the framework.
Yeah.
But it's never really set up to how you want to play. And we managed to sort of set the game up and sort of agreed on what we wanted and set the team up for that. So that was brilliant, and we played in the dry, mate. Like, there's a reason that
keep pushing this summer, don't we?
The standard of rugby, right at the start of the season and right at the end of the season, is through the roof because the ball is dry. You don't have to think about catch pass. You don't have to hold your depth so much so that you're not fumbling the ball. You can catch it outside the body. You're not catching on the chest. And the game is refereed in a completely different way down there. Like, the game is all out attack. What happens in the breakdown? Fortunately, I don't get involved in the breakdown, but watching it was like, okay, that's...
Free for all, was it?
Well, just move the body.
It's less policed, is that
well...
Keep the ball moving sort of thing, isn't it?
They want the game to be entertaining. They want eyeballs on the game. And I think they're probably trying to move the game back to where Super Rugby used to be, where it's an outrageously high-scoring game. Attack is the most dominant thing on the field. They want to see the razzle-dazzle stuff. And I think probably suited the way that I see the game too. Like, I want attack to be the dominant one of the two compared to defence.
So would you be, because Alex said there, we've mentioned many times Summer Rugby, would you be kind of open to that suggestion, kind of come over here? Would it work? Could it work?
I don't see why it couldn't work. I mean, like, Dunedin is not the driest place in the world in New Zealand. So what they put a roof on the stadium. Class. So for me, and it's a grass pit. It's deso, but it's grass. So it's, the 50-50. No dew on it because all four corners are open. So like the stadium gets very dewy and very wet, the ball does. So everybody thinks that, Principality Stadium, dry ball's going to get zipped around the place. It's not, because of all the condensation and the dew. So the ball is wet. So yeah, Forsyth Bar. I think Forsyth Bar is the blueprint for all rugby stadiums, all multi-sport venues around the world. We had a capacity of 20,000 for Highlanders games. There's a empty stand, basically. There's just a space behind one of the opposite end of the zoo where all the students are. That was nuts.
It's like the self-standing Hong Kong, is it?
Yeah. They got their own DJ and like the students go wild. It's awesome. They create a really cool atmosphere. And the other end to that is when the Highlanders play a blank space, but when they've got concerts come to town, that's where the stage goes. When the All Blacks come to town, they bang another stand there to put them. So they've got I feel a good infrastructure there as a sporting venue.
You have to do the Haka, right?
Not publicly.
No.
So the lads did the Haka when we played away to Moana Pacifica.
That's it,
in Tonga. But I, at that point, was injured. But yeah, that was a challenge.
Would you have been at the back, like half as was in Munster?
Oh, definitely.
Back. The cameraman was on half as the whole game.
You've got to give it the beans. So I was pretty average with the words, but I worked out what the actions were.
Well, you're half a second behind the person in front.
No. I was.
That's what I would have been.
At the start, I was half a second. But yeah, I worked out and so give it the beans for that. But yeah, super impressive when the lads are going at it.
Yeah.
It's a sight to behold.
Could you enjoy it? Because, as fans, we all love the Haka, right? Do you know what I mean? And maybe when you play against New Zealand, you kind of enjoy that moment as well and appreciate it for what it is. But because you were concentrating on kind of the movements and stuff, could you not enjoy it?
Yeah, I would say that I fell into that category.
Yeah.
For sure. But then you watched the lads who had done it for years and had been at the Highlanders for years. And so the Highlanders Haka was second nature to them. That was super impressive. And there were some big milestones there when I was there, and so to be a part of that and do the Haka to acknowledge the milestones that certain players had reached was something really special. We had the Highlanders song as well, which had,
What is it?
it was really cool because there was a bit of English language in there, and then there was Fijian, Samoan, Tongan,
Bloody hell.
and you learnt the words.
Wow.
And it was awesome. And the lads and the Islander or the Polynesian lads would sing in harmony to it, really,
properly
really cool.
singing.
Yeah.
Harmonising is hard, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how many lessons did you get
Of
kind of learning the words, learning the Haka?
Haka, I was actually ill. I got the dreaded vid.
Yeah.
When the Haka practice first took place. So I was for a few weeks half a second behind everybody else because I was trying to catch up. But the Highlanders song, just sort of pick it up as you went along.
Yeah.
Probably background at Glantave
Helped.
in the party voice and the choir and the musicals and stuff helped from that point of view. Amazing.
Do you remember your first Welsh cap and kind of
What do you sing, Kath?
Michael Bublé.
Did you?
Yeah. Is it me you're looking? Is it that one? I think it was something like that. I
Is it
definitely.
me you're looking for? That's Lionel Richie. Hello, mate.
Is it? Did I
Yeah.
sing that? I might have sang that then.
I know Lou Reed did that.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, my first cap was against. It was that one-off game against Australia.
Yeah, okay.
So we didn't really have like an after-match function. So I ended up doing it when we did a summer tour to Australia. So I did it there after I was already played about 5 or 6 games by then. So
More confident then to belt it out.
I definitely had a few beers beforehand. I think it was a big stage. I think we were in I think it was in Sydney somewhere in the hotel, and it was a massive stage, and they went up one at a time. Because the best after-match song I've ever seen is Lou Reed when we played Scotland. Home, second game of Six Nations, he got up and the guy on the piano, he was unbelievable, wasn't he? And everyone just joined in. It was like a 10-minute, just Lou Reed, go for it.
He was good.
Very good, fair play. He was, and then whoever went after, I think Aaron Shingler sang some Robbie Williams singing and was like, boo.
The key is you want boys to join in with you.
Yeah.
You know,
Sing a song along.
And the earlier they join in, the better it is for you. Because if they let you get to the end of the verse before the chorus and they haven't joined in, then you're sort of panicking a little bit.
Yeah.
That changed the whole mantra of because you used to just sing in the change room afterwards in front of everyone, but as soon as Lou Reed did that one in front of everyone in the aftermatch function, it seemed to be a thing where any new cap had to sing in front of everyone after every function. So I think Tom Francis had to sing out in Ireland, in Scotland, loads of these first caps, you have to sing in front of all these people. It's different when you're singing in front of people than you are in a change room, isn't it? Because most of the time, the boys would just jump in. But when you're people wanting you to sing 3-4 verses, then the chorus, you're like, oh my God, I know the first bit.
Yeah.
So they're all shitting themselves. So it was good fun.
What was your song, Rhys? Because I reckon you can sing a bit, because you mentioned it, Glantave, Patty Beckin, Eisteddfod and all that.
I did King of the Road.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually handed a guitar and I thought, I don't know any songs other than King of the Road that the lads are going to join in with. So the old...
When was that? When did you do that?
2013, Japan.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine doing that to a room full of Japanese people.
Yeah, no one's getting singing along.
No one's singing along with it.
Yeah, they're just listening to you quiet as anything, aren't they? Brutal.
You mentioned Sydney. Let's talk a bit about Wales, Australia on Saturday morning. I take it you both watched a bit of the game.
Yep.
Rhys, what did you think of Ben Thomas at 10?
Yeah, I thought he was all right. First start internationally at 10, second start for the season at 10. It's a big ask, isn't it? And I would say that he would come off the field, kicked all his goals, some lovely penalties to touch, like give Wales some really good field position, some smart line-out calling. Like the really nosy stuff is what I look for, not the highlights moments. You know, like I thought decision before Wales scored their driving maul try, pulls out, drops the ball on the toe into the dead space. Like that's a really smart decision. I think when he throws the ball into touch, that's awesome from him. He's seen that Wales have got a dent. He's flattened up, taken the line, and he's just gone so fast that nobody's managed to, everybody's half a second behind him because they're reacting to him. So I would say that there's plenty for him to be positive about and plenty for him to work on. And then when Costi came on, he's in the sweet zone of 9 points down, 10, 12 minutes left on the clock, mate. You've got to try and get something to happen for us here. You just bring a load of energy and try and get something to happen. And Wales's attack sort of looked a bit, I'm reluctant to say better, but had a bit more intent about it.
Yeah.
But that's because you have to chance your arm at that stage. You can't just sit back and try and squeeze Australia.
Yeah, but Gareth Hanscom said many a time here, isn't he, when you come on as a sub, kind of it's a little bit easier than starting as a 10. Would you agree with that, Rhys?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the same in any position, right?
Yeah.
Like you go on and they say, Kath, you're going on here. There's 15 minutes left on the clock and we're 2 scores down. You're thinking, I'm getting the ball here and I'm going to try and make something happen for us.
Yeah, 100%. I remember being on the bench against Ireland. I came on for... Oh, no, actually, Ireland and Scotland. I came on. I had more carries than most of our back line within 15 minutes against Scotland at the end of the game. I remember just getting off ball off 9, just trying to get the ball as much as possible, just trying to get speed of ball or just trying to... You maybe try too hard sometimes, don't you? But you have a free shot. I don't think you go on and Costi... He did sort of... I think the intent was there, isn't it? I just don't think the combinations at the moment are working, are they? You know, with the centres, I don't... You know... They need more time. That's one thing. But I did like Ben at 10. I thought he's got that skill set, isn't he, in terms of trying to shift it wide. But whether everyone's all on the same page at the moment, it doesn't look like it, does it?
That's the difficulty is, and inevitably you get better as you go along. But the squad has changed a little bit since Six Nations again, where there is. You probably look back when Cathy and I were in the squads. Cathy more than I. But, you know, sort of between 2012 and 2019, that period of time where the squad was fairly settled. You might get 2 or 3 new faces in every couple of years, but it was fairly settled. And so it was easy to build a rapport and build a collective understanding about what the game was trying to look like. And you know, if my body language was X, then Kath would know, right, Patch is going to take off here. And so I just need to get sniffing around him because he's going to start going to the line and double pumping. And as Kath says, it takes time to develop that. And at the moment, they just haven't had that much time together as a collective unit, as like a 35, 40-man squad. Yes, they had South Africa, but the team changed again slightly from South Africa, you know.
If I don't know if he did, but if Ben Thomas would have rang you the night before the game and said, Rhys, I'm playing 10 for the first time for Wales, what advice would you have given him going into that game?
See it, hit it.
Okay.
So I think that would probably be one of the best pieces of advice that I got was, if you see something, back yourself that you've seen it. Don't try and second guess and catch the ball. Or is the space still there? Yeah, the space is still there. Right, I'll have a go now, because by the time that you've had that second and a half to think about it, the door's closed and you end up with egg on your face. So if you see something, go after it. And ultimately, you got to back yourself. Like if you throw in the jersey, because the coaches want to see you go out there and give it the beans. So yeah, that would probably be what I'd... If I was to go back to my younger self...
You tell yourself that?
That's what I tell myself.
Because I think international level, they try and overcoach you a little bit, don't they, in terms of you need to do this, you need to do that, rather than when you're at club rugby, you sort of like feel and play sort of what you see a bit more. Maybe you do have a bit more time, don't get me wrong, don't you, at 10?
100%.
But sometimes I think like international, they really want you to play a certain way, and it doesn't always fit, like you said, the same, you know, because obviously Biggs was 10 for a long period of time. Rhys would be stepping into that role, and they would want Rhys to play pretty much how sort of, I guess, Dan would want the team set up. So Ben, I quite like the fact he will just, you know, ship the ball. I know when to touch, but just right, get it to edge. That's the way he plays. That's why he's probably more of a 12, isn't he? I think a ball playing 12 than 10. Yeah. But I like, if they can, they're just going to have to stick that combination. And, they may lose 3-4 more games in a row, but that combination needs to have a running games together to get that confidence, to get that understanding of playing together. That's the only way you're going to get it better, because if you keep chopping and changing...
I think that's the key. If you're a young player, that's what you want.
You want to be backed.
Yeah. I always think that if you're a young 10, you want the coach to come to you and say, mate, you're going to have 4 games. And you go well, you go dreadfully, but you're in for 4 games. So buckle up, because you're going to have the team. Because then that sort of second of, or if I throw this, or if I kick this and it doesn't come off, does that affect selection next week? Everybody says, they don't think about that in the moment.
But it's there. It's there. Yeah,
it is always there. Especially when the coaches haven't made their mind. It doesn't look like the coaches have made their minds up around who's going to play 10. Costy started against South Africa. Jacob Beethan came off the bench. Ben's had a run at 10. Costy came off the bench this week. It seems like that 10 jersey is still up for grabs.
You still got Gareth, obviously, probably back. How well he goes with Gloucester. He'll be back in the mix in the autumn. Then you've got another dilemma then, right? Do you just put Gareth straight in? Or so this is the problem in terms of having all these young players, but he doesn't know, I think, at the moment, who is starting where, really, at the moment, for me.
Well, Cuthbert, you kind of knew, but you didn't say last week that Ben was starting at 10.
Yeah.
So
and Bevan, yeah.
Yeah.
I did know, yeah. But I thought Bevan went all right. I think
he did.
He went all right. But like I said, I'd be shocked if he sticks with the same team, but I wouldn't be surprised if, in a weird way. Do you know what I mean? I think they know they need that continuity, and that they need to, the combination needs to start clicking, but at the other end, he's trying to win a test match. So, the boys that come off the bench.
Changes for Saturday?
I don't know yet. I was speaking to the boys earlier on, but they didn't, weren't really letting slip much. So I do feel there'll be a few changes. I know they're going to want to cap Regan Grace, so whether he gets a shot on the wing. Obviously Hathaway, they capped him. A bit of a shaky start.
What do you think of him, Kath?
He just seemed like he wasn't like he's a running fullback / wing, isn't he? And some of his kicks, they're a bit loose and sort of let Australia back in the game. For him, I was a bit surprised he kicked that and not had a crack. He just looked a bit nervous in the first test, but while I've spoken to a lot of the boys in the week, he's very, very sharp. So he's got that material to play international rugby. But it's like I said, we've spoken already numerous times about these players maybe being in the situation probably a couple of years too early. But this is where, it's like Gat says, it's where we are, isn't it? But he's the future on the wing. There's not too many other options on the wing at the moment, is there? Ria Dyer, Josh Adams is getting on a bit. So
hang on, steady on, mate. He's only 30.
Well, yeah, actually, I always think Jadsy's older than he is, but yeah, he's going to be the senior man in that backfield with Liam, and other wingers wise, there's not Gilo was obviously in that situation, but he's been injured and has that background of being injured quite a bit. So that's a position where he needs to just get and grab it, really. Yeah,
it's what Rhys said. I think is really interesting, and we touched on it a little bit with the Sam Parry situation with communication last week. So you were saying there, if you want to be known that you're backed for 4 games, for example, to go and express yourself and play without fear, right? So would you say communication from Gatland to the 10s and to some of these young wingers is really important right now, so they understand this tour, this is the purpose of the tour? And yes, we're going to chop and change, or we're just going to give you kind of a run of games. Because I was kind of hoping, from a fan point of view, that we'd finish this tour and I'd have a better idea of who were the mainstays for Wales for the future. And if
we may have, there's still another 2 games. We're only one game into a 3-game tour. I think that is always the key, and that's probably, if it's not the head coach, it's the assistant coaches that have that open dialogue or have that constant line of communication with players.
For example, now though, Rhys, would you, if you were 10 and you Ben and Sam now, do you think that there should be a clear message? You're going to play one game, you're going to play the other test, and then we'll see how we go with the third game. I
feel that puts pressure on the player though, then, doesn't it? Do you? I don't know. Because they won't be told you're playing next week, you're playing this week.
They won't.
They won't have a clue. I don't think they'll have a clue.
I didn't realise this. When we went to Argentina 2018, we played South Africa in Washington, and then we had 2 tests in Argentina. And we played against South Africa, beat South Africa in Washington. And then the week after, and Gareth started that game. And I was like, oh, there we are then. Gareth's going to start, he's gone well in the jersey. We've won a game. He's going to stay in the jersey. And then it ended up being, they swapped the team up and I went in and played 10 the second week. And then I think they made the decision on the third week based on the first two. So, I think if they would have told me, on one hand, if they would have told me, you're not going to play this week, but you're going to play next week, I'd have panicked for a week.
Right,
thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to be excellent next week.
Yeah.
On the other hand, part of me thinks if they gave me a week to prepare for a game, I'd be ready for a game.
Yeah.
So I think the way that you message that is very, very interesting and very, very important. And that's why not everybody, or a lot of players who finish up have the technical, tactical knowledge to be able to coach, because the game is all there and they've lived and breathed it for however long they have. It's that understanding people and the pedagogy of learning and all the rest of it. That's what separates those top end coaches who can pull the best out of players. So in a really long-winded answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing though in international rugby, isn't it? It's not really coaching, it's managing.
Yeah, I think so.
The egos obviously in the squad and the key figures, the senior players, the younger players. That's the biggest thing in international rugby. It's not coming and coaching them because they're world class players. That's why they're international players. They just need to be managed. That's what I'm saying is a mass, especially now with how young the squad is. That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, because there's countless times that I've heard ex-Manchester United footballers say, Ferguson would tell me, you're not playing, but you're playing that one. Get ready, get yourself prepared. So they had clarity, and them footballers have said in interviews after that was all I needed. I knew that he needed me for that role. That was my job, and I could focus on that. Yeah. I don't know, it's kind of playing cat and mouse between the tens is kind of if it's effective or not. If it being in uncertain situations.
Dats has always done that though, mate.
Yeah, that's his thing.
I never went into a squad when it was a settled squad. Still, no one knew that they were going to start. No one knew they were guaranteed. Right, you are playing. It was obvious. What the team never changed, did it? But boys would still be like, waiting for that team announcement, like, oh, am I playing? Or even every squad announcement for the squad, like, waiting for that email, wasn't it? Like you'd never feel safe. That's how Warren has the mantra. Like that's what he does mentally to a lot of players. That's what he's good at. His boys really. That's how you get 100% out of everyone, isn't it?
Yeah. And equally, really interesting though. He went the other way with Jared and I for the World Cup slot in 2019. Came up to me in the physio room. Boys are getting strapped for Tuesday's training and said, oh, I've been in the press. I was like, great. Okay, awesome. No, I've just so you know, I've told the press, Jared's going to get the first half, you're going to get the second. I'm going to make a call on that. I was like, sweet. Right. Awesome.
What did you say to him?
I was, oh yeah.
Cheers. Cool. Hello, boss.
So I have been in that situation. I think having the long time wouldn't sit well with me.
Right.
But having that, like, I knew what my role was. So I was just, but I don't know, mate.
It's different, isn't it? I suppose different coaches.
I would have hated that, no. And I would have been like, right, if I wasn't, if they told me you're not playing this week, but you're playing next week, I would stew over that for 10 days.
What? As in, why are they not playing me?
I'd rather just be like, just told, like that week you're not playing, and I don't know what's happening next week. Do you know what I mean?
On Monday, yeah. Okay.
In theory, then you feel like you feel like you're sort of saving yourself that week, making sure that you're 100% for the week after, sort of thing.
So with the Lions, then, what did they do with the Lions then?
I got told bloody Wednesday that I was dropped to the bench second test. First test, they just announced, I think Monday night, and then we had the shirt presentation on the Tuesday with Sir Ian McGeechan and then we got the jerseys. Then the second test, because the squad changed an awful lot in the Lions tour, but that's the toughest one because they're all obviously world-class players playing for all internationals, but everyone feels like they should be starting. That's the hardest mentally, and like trying to manage all the egos and the personalities that you have on the tour. And some boys took it well, and which Warren would probably say, and some didn't. So yeah, that's as a coach, that would be really hard, I think.
Did you take it well? How did you
No, I didn't at all. I've already said about this. I lost the head, to be fair. Howlers actually told me, yeah, we're going to drop you to the bench. What? You serious? Scored a nice try. We won the game. Felt like I was playing really well.
Yeah, we're
going for more experience than Tommy Bell. I was like, fuck, on the bench, didn't even get on either. And then the next week, they're like, yeah, you're not on the bench at all this week. Oh, great, okay. So we're all in a glorified stag do the last 10 days. But, that's the Lions tour, like they use players for certain games. The game, as the series went on, it just changed.
Yeah, but you scored a try, right? You burst through the middle.
Yeah, first test.
Yeah.
We won in Brisbane.
You run like a nice little tight block play behind.
Yeah, geez, that was a good move, wasn't it, back in the day? We used to run. I thought that was the only move we had at Cardiff, wasn't it?
Right, we give it to Cuth.
Literally, yeah, but ran up about 5 blokes in front.
We're
Yeah.
giving it to Cuth. That's what we're doing.
But it's just like I said. I think as a coach and obviously coaches in the Lions, that's the hardest thing. Is just managing the type of players that you have within that environment.
Yeah, Rhys, 2019 Australia. You had a
Yeah.
happy memory in that game. Was it 29-25?
Yeah.
You kicked 3 penalties, dropped goal as well. When you look back on that game, kind of, what's your kind of overriding memories of that World Cup victory?
Relief.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the whole, like you're saying, Biggs was starting. He went off for a HIA, and I thought to myself, great, I've just got to hold the weight of the team for. And if we get 3 points on the scoreboard, great. But if I can leave the field with a net 0 score difference, that'd be fantastic. And then just sort of Jinx running on with the T, being like, "You're staying on, pal. Like you're going to see us home." And the team ran itself at that stage. You just had to catch and pass and give people the ball where they needed it.
Well, Wales were number 1 in the world then, weren't they? I think.
Yeah, we
into that
went.
World Cup?
We were number 1, number 2. We definitely got to the number 1 rankings just before the World Cup. I don't know if we were, but we were sort of aware of how important that game was.
Yeah.
Alan wins 130th.
Yeah.
So like absolutely critical. I don't
It's
think
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Nuts, isn't it?
so. Like we knew how important it was for Al, as in for us to give Al a result on such a landmark game, and also in the context of the group, because we had a 6-day turnaround into Aussie, and then we had 10-day turnaround into Fiji. So it was like empty the tank for this game, 3 or 4 days to recover, and then we'll build for Fiji after that. The relief of finishing that one, knowing, right, we can actually enjoy 2 or 3 days worth of downtime here before starting again for Fiji, because that would have been. It's a bit like losing the last game of the season. That is, there's rocks into your towel all summer. It's not very comfortable. It's good.
When Jinx said to you, you're on. What do you remember that moment of like, right, bring this on?
I remember Jinx running the tee on and being like, "You're staying," or maybe he's told me after. But either way, he ran the tee on, but a HIA replacement isn't allowed to kick for goal, and that's what I was at that stage.
Yeah.
So Liam Williams comes bounding over, like, "I'll kick it."
Yeah.
And I gave him a few choice words, as though, no, I've got the tee here, pal. I'll do this. Kicked it, threw the tee back at Jinx, and that's the point where he said, "You're staying on." And then I think off that kickoff, Gar Cawdor throws the intercept and we score again. And so at that point, I thought, the game's safe here. We're going to be okay in Australia.
It's a nice feeling, that, isn't it?
Until Australia started turning it on in the second half. I think when you're in the middle of it, you're just like thinking, what needs to happen next? What needs to happen? It's only at the end of the game when you realise, oh my gosh, that was on really early, 20, 25 minutes, something like that, when Biggs went off. It's cool.
Yeah, it was a great win, that win. It struck me for the first time in a long time watching the Wales-Australia game on Saturday. I was watching with my 9-year-old, and he had that, the magic feeling when you had when a kid, when you're watching a team play like in a foreign country, and it looks a bit different and everything's a bit magical about it. Like, as a player, when you play in Australia or kind of South Africa and playing away, is it magical for you guys as well?
It is cool. I enjoyed it. I loved the tours. I had a real 2014. We had a class tour to South Africa. That was a really good tour. One of my favourite, I think, trips away was when I think it was like when we went to Auckland to play Tonga and Samoa.
Yeah, 2017.
That was a fun. That was a real fun tour. A lot of young boys. There was myself, Jamie Roberts. I think, were you on that one? There was a few older boys, Gareth, and then a lot of young boys like coming. Adam Beard was like a real youngster then. Ryan Elias. There were loads of new caps, wasn't it? That was a real fun sort of tour. That was the funnest tour I've been on. But overall memories of Australia is that the amount of abuse that you get from a touchline is unbelievable. Like, Cuthbert, mate, you crap. You know, that constantly screams. South Africa, the same. But a lot of us loved it. It was class. You never get that over here. Everyone's just like, oh, it's a great, good game when you play like
Do you
England.
give it back over there?
Sometimes. I remember scoring a try in that first test in the Lions. I had a guy, I was on the right wing first half when George scored that worldie. And there was a guy, I could hear him. It was just, I don't know why, I could just hear it, like, Cuthbert, you crap, yeah, blah, blah. And then I scored and I looked straight over him and like that. You see me, I was like quite serious, but yeah, you love it. You love, you know, it's good with that fan interaction, just giving you a bit of stick. It's just, you know, it's what we love, isn't it?
It must have been magical for your family, Rhys, to watch you on Super Rugby, like on Sky and stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Getting up early and watching the games. Early, something crazy about that, you know?
Yeah, I think, well, that's also, that's how I remember Super Rugby is, and that was why the whole, do you want to go to Super Rugby? Yeah, I want to go to Super Rugby. This is going to be awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure they quite got up for the old 2 o'clock wake up and when it was an afternoon game.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I don't think I didn't even think about that. No, just what a great opportunity. Really selfishly, what a great opportunity this is for me. Luckily, Mum and Dad got out to come and visit. Dad 2.5 weeks, saw a bit of the South Island, saw a bit of the North Island. But yeah, touring is like the best part about it, and I think if you're as a young player, I wouldn't have made the most of touring. I would have been thinking, gosh, there's a game on the weekend. I need to be prepared for the game.
Yeah, no book club for you, was there?
No book club. And I think I wouldn't have made the most of days off. So that tour was awesome. I remember day off straight to Waiheke Island. Lads went and had some food. Saw a bit of Auckland. That was brilliant. The week after, when we went to Samoa, Jamie was head of entertainments committee, so he organised the lads going to Sewer Trench Hole. One of the things you see on Instagram, like the really cool travel pages. One of those things. So that's the really cool part about touring, is that you've got to get out and you've got to make the most of the country that you're visiting. Like we are really lucky. Washington 2018, got out, went to the White House, had a tour on the White House. Parksy was one of the best tourists I've ever come across.
Really?
Like his itinerary for his day off was equally
8 till 8, isn't it? Just
mate, he's just tourist. Unbelievable.
He makes the most of anything, doesn't he?
He's like, Patch, I'll meet you at breakfast at 7:30.
You need that though, right?
We're out at 8 o'clock, and then I want to see the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, Capitol, Smithsonian Museum, like just banging out all these things. And I got to like 4 o'clock. I'm thinking,
tired.
Paxi, I've got to get off my feet, mate. We've got test match.
I need an hour rub now from the physio.
Oh, good stuff. Well, Rhys, it's been lovely chatting to you today. We wish you well on your next chapter, wherever it may be. Hopefully there's no difficult conversations with the missus on the next one. And Alex, always a pleasure as always, mate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for you listening at home as well. Remember, you can follow us on our socials. Just search Sporting Wales, tell your friends about us and share the love. And we'll catch you next week. Wherever you go, wherever you are, enjoy your Sporting Wales week.
Sportin Wales podcast.
Supported by Dragon Bet.
Your go-to for Welsh sports news and views.